Ahoy! Headhunter! What's up, everybody? LinkedIn Live. Welcome to the Headhunter Hideout Show. I'm super excited today. This is going to be season 2, episode 1. And I am honored to have Scott McGregor with us. And anybody who doesn't know Scott, you need to connect with him. He is a LinkedIn legend, and probably had 3 or 4 people actually tagged him when I said who should be the first guest for episode 1. And so we're honored to have Scott with us. If you don't know Scott, he is the CEO and founder of Something New. They truly put people over everything. And he's built an awesome recruiting firm that really focuses on people. He's also the author of a book called, or multiple books, one called Standing O, and the other one is Standing O Encore. And there's another book on the way, which we can chat about a little bit. But Scott, we are so honored to have you on the show. I'm honored to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
No, thank you very much. You are the LinkedIn legend, so I follow your content religiously, and I am very, very jealous all the time. So, and I appreciate you sporting the people over everything shirt. Looking good.
Yeah, man. When did you send this through? It must have been a couple.
Wow.
Yeah, it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think, at least. Yeah. And I know I had to get the extra large because I got the pandemic 15 that I added on. But yeah, man, I'm super happy to have you on the show, and I'd love for you just to share a little bit about Something New and just how you got into recruiting. I know this show is all about recruiting and headhunting. Sure. And I'd love to just hear how you got into the recruiting world and a little intro on that.
So I'll preface this by I'm not trying to offend any recruiters that happen to be on this, but I was a chief revenue officer. So I'd left a Fortune 500 company to go to a startup. And through the course of 17 years as a chief revenue officer, we were able to grow that company double digits every single year for 17 straight years. Wow. I say this all the time. In the beginning, that's super easy. At the end, it's pretty hard. But through that kind of journey, I was constantly looking for more talent to build out our national sales force. So what do you do when you're drinking from a fire hose every day? You say, what can I outsource? So especially in 2008, the economy was terrible. We were hiring like crazy. Every recruiter was calling me with these magical unicorn candidates that they miraculously had, even though they knew nothing about me or my company. And so through the course of 17 years and even prior to that in sales leadership, dealing with recruiters, I was very frustrated. I was frustrated that they didn't really have a process. I was frustrated by their fee structure. I was frustrated that they really weren't giving me ideas that they were finding in terms of best practices. So I said, you know what? I love connecting people. I love relationships. That's been the key to any success I've ever had, were the relationships I had. So I thought, why don't I solve my own problems and build a better mousetrap? So I think we've done that. 5 straight American Business Awards for innovation. Amazing. So we've tried to just do things very differently, but I appreciate the intro.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I know one of the things you said, which I find the exact same way, is, you know, when recruiters are throwing out resumes and they're saying, hey, I've got a great fit for you, or somebody that could be potentially a great fit. Obviously, there's no way you can know if someone's a great fit culturally speaking without knowing who the company is. So how do you guys approach that at Something New? Like, what's your approach to trying to find, you know, not just that skill fit, but that culture fit? How do you guys manage that?
So we never do that. And I certainly experienced a ton of that. So our goal initially is just to get to know a company or just to get to know a candidate, because that's really the only way that you're going to figure out if the puzzle pieces fit. And that's a process. So we have a formal structured process called ASAP. It stands for Accurate Search Accelerated Placement. But we do that on both sides of the equation, on the candidate side and the client side. And that really ensures that we're never smashing a square peg into a round hole. Or, when you're doing a puzzle, there are times you find pieces and you're like, I think this fits.
Yeah.
And then you realize it doesn't quite fit, but you could kind of manipulate it in if you wanted to. I think that's what happens a lot in the recruiting game. And I think it's a huge mistake. And I think it's a disservice to your candidate. It's a disservice to your client. It's a disservice to yourself. Somebody giving you the opportunity to help them with their career is an honor. And I think if you think of it that way, and you think that I'm really trying to find an ideal fit, not make a fee, it changes the way you do things. And you're more than happy then to invest the time to really get to know both sides. And then if the puzzle pieces align, that's great. But if they don't, you don't worry about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you mentioned those awards that you guys have won. How about with clients? I mean, do you find that you've worked with a lot of the same clients for a long time, and describe those relationships a little bit? Because again, I think within the recruiting world, a lot of times it's really, really hard to find long-term clients, and you kind of have seasons of clients that you go through, but really trying to find those long-term partnerships a challenge. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
We've had a ton of repeat business. I would say the majority of our clients have come back. They've come to us initially because maybe they needed a chief revenue officer or a chief marketing officer, and we've fulfilled those needs for them. But I think the experience has been so different that they've come back then for other things that they've needed throughout the years. So we've been in business for almost 6 years, and we have clients that have been with us for really almost since day one. So there is a lot of repeat business. I think people mistakenly think that there's no residual income in this business, but I think if you treat clients the right way and if you have a unique offering, you certainly are going to get a lot of repeat business, which we've been able to do.
100%. And I know Larissa here, she just says, yes, Scott, love that visual. The puzzle piece may seem like it fits, but trying to make it fit will ruin the whole picture. And I think, that's exactly what it is. And we all
Larissa
know
said it better than I did.
Yeah. Great job, Larissa. And I know we've got Liam out there as well. Ashutosh too. We've got him out there as well. So we appreciate all of you guys out there, and anyone else, feel free to comment, ask questions. I really would encourage anyone, particularly in the recruiting world, if you have questions for Scott, definitely feel free to note those, and we'll get to all the questions as much as we can. I'd love to focus a little bit too. Like, I know like recruiting firms, they typically have like a boiler room atmosphere, and I hate to generalize, but I think a lot of firms that are out there, it is just such a sales focused and sales focused world, which creates pressure, and it's very revenue based, which we don't need to get into. But one of the things that really struck me about your team is, number one, your team's very, very active on LinkedIn. So they're putting a lot of content out, and it seems like that's something to do with your culture. Like you really, not just with your clients, not just with the candidates, but with your own employees. Right. It seems like there's that encouragement of people just being themselves and sharing their stories. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you've developed that over the years, and kind of how that even just came to be with the team.
I mean, it's just something that I believed in. So I was one of the first 1 million people on LinkedIn. So I've been using LinkedIn forever, and I've encouraged every team that I've ever managed to really use it. I think companies, they want continuity, but what they wind up delivering is kind of this generic sameness. And that's not really appealing. So what I think is appealing is that what Ali Fisher may put out there is different from what Greg Briscoe and Diane Ristow and Kathy Leckie and Tab and all these other folks that we have all over the country. And that creates diversity, which is attractive. It's interesting because it's not the same old, same old. So I think everybody's an individual that has their own voice and their own ideas. And why not put those out there? I'm certainly not afraid. I think a lot of companies they're very fearful that individual voices will damage their brand. And what they really don't realize is that those individual voices are going to uplift their brand and showcase their brand. So I love it. We've got a very active team that loves to tell their stories in unique ways using LinkedIn, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. Do you guys, and you don't necessarily need to answer this, I guess, but just in terms of business development, like, do you see a correlation between clients and putting out content? Like, is it actually a business driver, or does it not have an impact? I'm curious to hear how that kind of plays out.
It has a huge impact. So people may not believe this, but it'll be 6 years in February. We've never made a cold call, not one. We've never sent out any email blasts. So all of our business has been referral business. We do have some strategic partners that we work with, but we're not cold calling at all. So all of our business development is just by building a brand, showing up differently, and hopefully that resonates with people. And so far that's been the case, and it's driven a tremendous amount of business our way.
Awesome. Well, I know we talked a little bit about this offline. Yeah, that's really the vision that I'm trying to accomplish with HHM Media, or whatever name I came up with. But I think, to your point, it's great to have like just examples of people who encourage their own team to be building up a brand. And I think what holds most people back, at least what I see on LinkedIn, is a fear of, what is my boss going to think? What are my coworkers going to think? And I think we need more leaders like you who see the benefit in showcasing your people in a real way. And we discussed before the show, we have people over everything. And I think a lot of people can say huge statements like that, or like, I value my people more than anything. Right. And then they'll do a LinkedIn post, or they'll do a social media post, and suddenly they're getting reprimanded. And so I love that. I love that, like, it's real for you. And I love that the people who you have on LinkedIn, it's like everyone's kind of telling like a similar story, but there's definitely differences in it too.
Right.
And that's what really struck me about the team. Like, it's not like you guys get together in the morning and go, okay, this is our post. Let's all post the same thing. Right. Or let's just share it. It's like there's actual conversations going on. So super, super, super inspiring. And so I'd love to hear a little bit too. Obviously, I mentioned you have written a couple books, and we've got another book on the way. So tell us a little bit about Standing O and what the heart behind that was, and how that kind of plays into the business as well.
So when I started the business, the most important thing to me by far was the ability to give back. So I absolutely was not looking to build a gigantic company. I built our last company into about 300 employees. And tens of millions of dollars in revenue. It's not that we don't want to be successful. We absolutely do. But I think the growth and the financial success that we have, we want that to be not only for ourselves and our families, but also our way to give back. Here's the problem. When you start a company, you don't have any money. So we're bootstrapped. We, by design, don't take any outside funding. So, I really had to step back, and I had to say, so we call our philanthropic arm of our business Something Good. So I had to think of, what can we do to give back in a unique way? Because I wasn't in a position where I could just write gigantic checks to people that I believed in, nonprofits. So one of the assets that I've always had is this gigantic group of, very eclectic group of really interesting people, whether they were New York Times bestsellers or pro athletes or Olympians or CEOs. I've just had this really large group of friends. And I thought, why don't I leverage that group to write a book of gratitude for a life lesson that they learned, and then we'll give all the proceeds to charity. And I thought the result of that would be we would raise awareness and we would raise funds for a charity. So we did that. We put out Standing O. We had 52 absolutely off the charts people. Dick Vermeil wrote the foreword. Legendary football coach Tiki Barber wrote the cover quote.
Cool.
And because I'm not a genius, I said, well, that worked. So what you do when something works, you go, let's wash, rinse, repeat. So let's do it again. I think I could scare up another 52 friends. I screwed up. We wound up with 53 in the second book.
Awesome.
So we put out Standing O Encore, gave all the proceeds to Look for the Good project. And then I'm excited to let everybody know that in November, we'll put out Standing O Salute, which is 100% military. So it's generals, it's Medal of Honor winners, it's special ops guys. It's really an epic lineup of authors, and all the proceeds are going to go to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which is an incredible organization. So that was just one of our ways of giving back. The T-shirts is another. 100% of the profits from the T-shirts go to charity. So those are the things that they make me jump out of bed in the morning. And want to build the best talent strategy company in the country. And I want to be financially successful, but it's not so that I can put another zero in my bank account or drive a different car. It's so that we can give back in a more substantial way. And the books has just been, one thing that we kind of fell into, to be honest, but it's worked really, really well.
How did that work? You reach out to people and then they write a letter into you and then you compile that. So that must have taken a long time to put together, or did you find it was pretty quick to kind of get it going?
It wasn't too bad. So we have our publisher is Eaton Press. They've done a great job. So they're the ones that kind of, spearhead all of the initiatives with the books. So I literally picked up the phone and called 52 friends and said, will you write a chapter of gratitude for a life lesson learned? So there's a couple benefits to them. Number one, all the proceeds go to charity. Number two, they get to memorialize somebody that's played a huge impact or had a huge impact on their life. And then they get to teach the world a lesson that they were taught that impacted them. So it's really a win-win-win. And so the chapters come pouring into Eaton Press. They do all the editing. They put everything together. And that's how it's worked for the first 3 books. And I'm sure there's more to come.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love the fact that you could just write out a check, right? And I think even if you had the money, like writing a check is great, but I love the fact that it's like you've got so many different levels. Like I feel like gratitude is something that we can all grow in.
Yeah.
And so having actual gratitude from the people writing it, that impacts them. Then the people that they're writing about, it impacts them. And oh man, it's super inspiring. And I think, for anyone who's out there that's in that similar position, I think the lesson here is you can get creative with something and actually come up with a way to make money. Like it's not always just writing a check. It's not always just kind of giving a check, which obviously is great in its own right. But I love that all the proceeds are going to charity too. And I'm sure, like I said, there's just so many different levels in there.
And, I think one of the keys too was awareness. So, nonprofits. So I've sat on boards. I've been chairman of the board. I've just been involved in nonprofits for decades. And they absolutely need money in order to survive. But a lot of there's so many incredible small organizations that people just haven't heard of that are doing incredible work to make the world a better place. But nobody gives if they don't know who you are. So a big part of the books, which goes beyond what a check could do, is to raise awareness. So when you've got 52 rock stars in a book with a social media. So far, the collective social media presence from the 2 books has been 10 million followers.
Wow.
So when you got 10 million followers of 50 of those 105 people, you've got a lot of spotlight on these organizations, and that's what we want to do. We want to raise awareness, and we want to raise funding. And sometimes it's actually easier to raise awareness than it is funding, but that awareness eventually turns into money.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, if people aren't aware, then they're not able to give money. Right. So, man, it's super inspiring, man. It's just even the fact that you had like the vision for that in itself, and then just to pick up the phone and actually get people to do things. Because again, so many of us have these good ideas of things that we can do, but it's taking that step and getting people involved too is awesome. And I know, just wanted to, Jason just says Scott puts people everything. I know Jason is just such a great guy, and
the best.
Anyone who knows Jason is he's all about connecting with people and having really people connect with themselves. And I think that's what this is all about, and that's what I love about your mission within recruiting, really with it and everything that you're doing. It is truly, it's putting other people first. But I think within that too, it's like, obviously you've been incredibly successful yourself. And I think, when you have that mentality and you're not just chasing after the success is going to come your way as well. And it's, I think that's what in recruiting, I think we're missing that, to be honest. I think there's so many firms that want to make tons and tons of money, but it's giving back. That's really where you make the money. And if you're in recruiting for money, you're going to be successful. You might have, be able to drive the fancy car and all that sort of stuff. But you're really missing the point of relationship. And I think that's what I've just seen from you is just a heart of relationship and care. And you've got this awesome network of people. And I think that's huge, and that's really what recruiting's about. So when did you, like, obviously you started the company, like, to me, a lot of people are in those positions, which they're really successful. Like, what was that tipping point for you where you were just like, you know what, I really just want to go for this? Like, how did you get to that point to where you just willing to leave a big job to start a little recruiting firm?
It's a great question. So the truth is I was absolutely terrified to start my own business. So I grew up with humble beginnings, let's put it that way. So my family did not have a lot of money, but I grew up in a really affluent town, which was kind of a strange way to grow up. So I was always super, super motivated. And so I was successful as a CRO, and we had built a very large company and leader in our space. And the thought of leaving that stability was, honestly, it was terrifying.
I'm sure.
But my wife recognized that something new was something that I thought about, talked about, wrote notes about all the time. And I was always, well, in January, I'll do it. I'll quit and I'll start this, or in June or whatever. And finally, she was the one that just really gave me the push to say, just follow your heart, do what you want to do. And that encouragement from her was really what allowed me to start the company. Because being an entrepreneur was a scary step. But it's the best thing that I ever did.
I love it. Well, again, it's just being motivated by doing something that you love over, just chasing after the money, which I think a lot of people, just throughout the time in recruiting and even in school. I remember just being in college, everybody wanted to be the business owner, and it's like you have the people that want to start a business for the passion of what they do, and then there are just other people like, well, you're never going to get rich unless you build something yourself. And I'm just a huge believer that if you set out there with that motive of like actually what you care about and your real passion that you have, you're successful. And just the fact that you're going to enjoy what you do so much more. So how long did it take to get to the point you're at right now, employee wise? And obviously being new to recruiting, I mean, I'm curious, just knowing what I know about recruiting, what was that like learning curve for you? and like, how do you train people up in recruiting and kind of where you're at right now? And obviously you had experience building teams as well, which I'm sure is valuable.
So, I mean, I'm very lucky in that the organization that I ran in the past was really a virtual sales force. So they were working all over the country. So I've been managing a remote sales force for over 20 years. So that is something that's relatively new to some organizations, primarily because of COVID. But for me, it was something that it's just the way that I decided to structure that last company. So that's been relatively easy. The good thing for us is that when we find somebody who's talented, so when we find Brianne Morgan in LA, when we find Greg Briscoe in Houston, we're going to hire them. I don't care where they are. So that's allowed us to expand our candidate pool pretty significantly. And I'm a big believer in onboarding because I think you can select the right talent, but if you don't onboard correctly, sometimes that talent really never gets maximized. So from day one, we codified everything that makes up the something new experience into an extremely detailed playbook. So the thought process is, if I walk out the door and get run over by a bus, anybody who can pick up the playbook and read is able to really follow all the steps that kind of make our experience unique. So that onboarding process is pretty intense, and that allows people to really understand who we are and how we do it. We don't necessarily look for people with a recruiting background.
Interesting.
I would say less than 50% of the people that we bring on board have a recruiting background. Greg's a great example. Greg was a sales leader for many, many years. So he understands hiring. He understands onboarding. He gets talent strategy. The recruiting piece, and because we do it so differently, is relatively easy to teach. And because I'm not breaking old habits or bad habits, it's very easy to kind of teach the methodology that makes our experience, so good.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I suppose if you have such a different mindset with recruiting, you don't necessarily want to bring people in, like you say, who are just have those processes. Right. It's probably harder to teach that. So how do you, do you have a lot of people just coming kind of to you and say, hey, I'd love to be a part of the team? Or how have you found that growth happening within your own team?
It's really like our business. It's come to us, and it's come to us because of our employees. I mean, our employees are our greatest advocate. And I think because they're having fun and having a great experience and something that maybe is very, very different from their traditional corporate job, they're big advocates for the brand. And I do wind up, you'll find out on Wednesday, we have a new person starting on Thursday, which I'm not going to announce it now.
Yes.
But it's another huge win for us. So we're incredibly excited to add somebody else to our team. But again, that came from a relationship that this person had internal to our team. And as we got to talk, we realized that what she was looking for was really what we offer.
Man, that's so cool. Well, I love that too. I mean, it's someone even asked this question. I'm just going to go back. They said, it just says LinkedIn user, so I'm not sure who it is, but it says, how do you gain clients? Or I guess, even how do you grow your team without cold emails and cold calling? And I think we obviously discussed that a little bit, but I think it's so different to what people think about. And I think it's a testament to content. It's a testament to true word of mouth and referrals. If you're doing a great job, if you're providing a great job that people want to work at, then they're going to talk about it and they're going to be posting about it. And so I love that.
This is why everybody should use your new company because it's the power of LinkedIn. I sometimes will use this analogy. So I'll say to a business owner, a friend of mine, who's trying to grow their business, if ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox came to you and said, you can advertise on our channels as often as you want. You can put up whatever advertisements you want. And oh, by the way, it's free. Like, people would lose their minds, right? They would go crazy.
100%.
So LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, those are just the new names for ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. And so I can control who drives by my billboard because of the people that I connect with. And I can control what they see on that billboard, and it's free. So why wouldn't everybody do that and leverage it? I think part of it is fear. But to me, it's a no-brainer. So that's how we've driven the business, is by being very, very active. And obviously, business, what you say you're going to do versus what you actually do, sometimes there's a huge disconnect. But if you execute, great business to me is all about one thing. It's about execution. If you execute, you're going to be in great shape, and clients are going to love you. So our net promoter score is through the roof. And that's a testament to actually executing, not just having a better story, but actually executing on that story. And with that comes more business, repeat business, but also referral business, because they'll tell other CEOs, hey, we had this experience with something new. You might want to give them a call.
Yeah, 100%. And then you guys have so it's not just recruiting, right? You've got it's like an advising side and like a very consultative side and like onboarding and training.
Yep.
Is that relatively new? Is that something that you've kind of built in over time, or was that the vision from the start?
We've had it for a long time, but we've really, really started to enhance it. So there's 3 businesses under something new. There's recruiting done differently. There's a corporate advisory service called Something New Labs, where we teach companies how to do talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention the right way. So that's really like setting the solid foundation that they can grow off of. And then we have an advisory service for individuals called Career Ideas, which is a very high touch, one-on-one advisory service for individuals that are looking to really strategize about their career.
Awesome, man. I love that. So, I mean, it's particularly, I love the fact that like you're doing recruiting, but then also teaching people actually how to keep those people and really develop the team. And I think that's where the relationship piece comes in, because, the goal, and I think that's something which I've always seen in recruiting. And I think a lot of people are starting to see is it's okay to fill it's almost like putting a Band-Aid on a wound, saying, hey, we can fill these roles 100%. For you. But it's like, okay, if you're actually having a struggle with recruiting, then let's solve that problem. It's just that takes longer to solve. So I love that vision. And
so it's the parable of teaching somebody a fish versus giving them a fish. To me, finding somebody a chief revenue officer is fantastic. It's great because that's what they need, but that's giving them a fish. Teaching them to fish is saying, if you want long-term sustained growth, you need to be able to do talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention better than your peers. And if you figure that piece out, you're going to have a competitive advantage against everybody. That's huge. And the ROI on learning those things, because I would say every company that I've ever dealt with, they really don't understand how to do those things to the level that they need to. It's a total game changer.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And someone asked here, Amy asked this a while ago, but I think it's a interesting point just in terms of like your strategy with LinkedIn. She said, do you follow the 10-4-2 pattern or do you do more? I think that 10-4-10 or 10-4-2 pattern.
I don't even know what it is.
I think it's almost like that strategy of engagement where you're maybe liking 10 posts, commenting on 4, and then sharing 2, and just kind of, I guess the question there is, do you have like a specific strategy that you put in place with LinkedIn, or is it more like, hey, I'm
No.
just going to share. Yeah. Okay.
So I wish I had a different answer, because I know that there are people that really understand how to use the algorithm to their advantage. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. That's just smart. I just put content out that speaks to me.
Yeah.
I typically put out a couple posts a day, but sometimes that's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. I don't try to time anything, so I really don't think, well, okay, Thursday at 2:30 is the best time to post. It's whenever the spirit moves me. That's when I'm going to get that content out there. That's probably not the best way to do it, and that's probably something that a company like yours is going to teach people. Is there are strategies that you can use to maximize your engagement. I'm just a little bit more seat of my pants.
I mean, I'm the exact same way, and I think a strategy and a plan in place is, I think, helpful. Like, as you're beginning in a journey, like with anything,
Right.
it's good to have like potentially a plan for things, and it can get overwhelming. But I think the goal of this company is to help people get to where you're at, where, hey, I'm moved by something, or I'm feeling something, or I'm thinking something. Okay, I want to express this.
Right.
Because when you're expressing yourself, as opposed to just trying to game the algorithm or trying to somehow engage with an audience that you think is out there, really, it's just doing what you do, which is getting that moment and going, hey, you know what? This is really encouraging to me right now. Let me share this with people. And what you gain from that is what you've gained, which is, really engaged people, really, people coming to you, wanting to work with you, clients wanting to work with you. And obviously you have to execute within that, but it's the perfect plan when you can have a really good content strategy, or just you're able to share who you are, then actually execute on it. And that's going to attract people, and it's going to attract more clients. So
well, in our business, there's so much that happens just in our daily life that actually applies to talent strategy. So Ali Fisher, who's on our team and helps run our advisory business, she posted something today that just happened to her teenage daughter over the weekend. So her teenage daughter worked at an ice cream parlor, and it was kind of end of the season. And instead of calling her up and saying, hey, we don't need you anymore, they just sent her a text and kind of let her go almost via text. And her 16-year-old daughter was like, this seems odd. Like, so it ties into our business and how we think about onboarding and offboarding and things like that. So, Ali wrote a great post today, but that was a, spur of the moment. Hey, this just happened to me. And I'm going to try to share that with people that hopefully can relate. And I don't know how well the post is doing, but typically Ali's stuff does pretty well. And that's really how we do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. So how have you seen with like COVID-19? I know you talked a little bit about kind of the remote aspect, and obviously you've had remote teams, and it sounds like 300 people to manage remotely and building a team that's connected. And obviously there's different layers with that. That's a challenge. Have you seen a lot of kind of on the advisory side, have you seen a lot of growth in terms of being able to really coach companies on remote work? And I'm just curious what your thoughts are of, how people who are managing remote teams, like how they can go about that and kind of stay connected with their teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about communication. I think, it actually starts a lot earlier. So it starts with hiring the right profile. There are people that can really thrive in a remote environment, and there's some people that can't thrive in that environment. And there's no right or wrong answer. It doesn't make one person better than the other. It's just there are people that need to physically be in an office with other people. And then there are other people that, can do without that a little bit more. So I think it starts kind of in the selection process. But once you're through that, I think it really all has to do with communication. Are you communicating on a regular basis? Are you communicating beyond work? Do you just care about, what's happening at work? Are you just asking, hey, Joel, what are your numbers? How many dials did you make? All this stuff. Or are you interested in what you might have done this weekend with your wife and daughter? Those are the things that I think make people feel connected to an organization. So if you're on our 9:30 call, so we have a 9:30, all hands meeting every day. It only lasts about a half an hour, but I mean, we spend probably a good portion of the time talking about what's going on in people's lives, whether they're moving or whether there's something going on with their kids or whatever the case may be. And I think because of that, everybody feels very connected, even though we've got people in LA, Houston, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Connecticut, kind of Minnesota, all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the communication, and obviously right now with emotions the way they are, and everybody's going through an emotionally tough time. A lot of people are right now. And I think it's to your point, it's asking the questions outside of work and being connected to that side and caring. I mean, what it comes down to, I mean, Gary just said, treat people like you want to be treated. And it's like one of those things where it just becomes, even that saying can kind of become token, but it's like 100% true. And I think from a remote point of view, if you want to stay connected, you've got to have that regular communication, but at the end of the day, you just got to care. And, unfortunately,
Gary's a great guy. He's a guy who actually lives like that. Former Canadian football star. He's a good dude.
Yeah, well, he just said people who care about their employees, I bet, have less turnover. And I think
100%.
Yeah, I love that. What did you? I think you posted something this weekend about that, and I think it captures the heart of everything we're talking about at the end of the day.
In my last business, we went 9 years without losing anybody, which I still maintain is like a Guinness World Book of Records.
Seriously.
And it was, I think, done because we intentionally really cared about everyone who worked for us way beyond kind of what they were doing from a sales, marketing, or client success standpoint, which are the three groups that I ran. So it's simple, but I think that's where so many people fail. All the simple things go back to like the golden rule. People just conveniently forget those, or they forget them under the pressure of hitting a number. And they get very short-sighted instead of playing the long game and understanding the benefits of that. And that by caring about people, which sounds to some people like it's soft, it's actually about driving revenue. Your chances of driving revenue are far greater if you care about your people and show them than if you don't. So it not only is a better way to live and it feels a lot better, but the business application is there too, because you're going to be more successful.
Man, come on. I feel like I could record that and just play it over and over. And it's just like that, one of those messages that, we can't really say enough of. And I know we hear it a lot. But one of the things I noticed just even having you on the live, I just want to say for everyone, like right as you got on, like you're really just like a calm guy. And you can just tell like you're really in like kind of like a calm place. I don't know how to describe it, but just right away, it was just like very, very natural person. And I think, I've done a lot of live shows and just connected with a lot of people, and just a really easy person to connect with. And, but I don't want people to be like misled by that either. It's just clear that you actually know how to treat people. And, it's clear by just what people have said about you. Like I've talked to a lot of people, and when I made the announcement that you were going to be on the show, I had like 4 people DM me, and they're like, Scott is like genuinely just a great guest for you to have. And, obviously I don't want to put down any of the other people I've got on the live show or anything like that, but I think it's a testament to who you are. And I wouldn't want that to be downplayed just by like how calm you are as well. So man, super inspired. And I know you've got to hop off on a call here in the next 15 minutes or so. But I just want to say, like, I really appreciate you being on here, and I think you're a great guest. And I think in terms of recruiting, you share a lot of what I care about too, which is just caring about people and not being about the money. So like to see someone like you who actually is living that out and built a company, super inspiring. And I think anyone who's out there that's in recruiting and just thinking about building a recruiting company, this is the mentality that you want to have, like genuinely putting people first and understanding that that's where the revenue comes from. And it's not driving revenue and then paying people good or just paying big bonuses, whatever is out there. Anything else, I guess, just in wrapping up, anything else that you'd want to leave us with, or anything else that we could, kind of take away from this, or what's the best way for people to reach you and connect with you? It'd be great to know too.
Best way to connect with me is definitely through LinkedIn. So send me a message. I love building relationships. So I guess, if you ask me for like a closing thought or whatever, relationships are what change everything. They are the number one reason why I've had any success in business. It's because of the relationships that I've built. And those are the most meaningful things to me. So double down on your relationships, but it has to come from the right place, because I think people can smell from a mile away when it's just a means to an end, when it's just, I want to build this relationship with Joel because I know Joel is going to be able to give me this. If you have that mentality, I think you're missing kind of what real relationships are all about. Like, I want to see you be wildly successful in your new venture, and I'm so genuinely excited for you. I'm so inspired by what you're doing to build this community, to build your company. I see what you're doing every day, and I'm like, wow, this guy is on fire. And you've got so much that you can teach everybody else that it's going to be really fun to sit back and watch that happen. So I appreciate you having me on.
It's your first LinkedIn Live, right?
This is my first LinkedIn Live. Yes. Every time I've gotten an invite, I had a conflict, and I'm like, I can't do it. And when I saw your invite, I'm like, I've got to make this happen. I've got to make it happen. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, man. Well, just thanks for all. I mean, those words mean a lot, and I know it's coming from a super genuine place too, which is awesome. And just everyone who's out there, definitely connect with Scott and like just follow his team as well. Follow something new. And I really think that any of the recruiters who are just starting out, just follow people like Scott, and he's leading the way for a better tomorrow in recruiting. And just really appreciate your time, man. I really appreciate the fact that you were willing to hop on, and it was a huge added bonus when you told me this morning that this was your first one.
I know.
I was like, yes.
I didn't even know how to get on. I sent Tab a message. I'm like, do you just hit a link, or like, what do you do? I don't even know.
So cool, man. So cool. Well, I know there was lots of people out there too. So obviously Gary, we got Tiffany, Marissa, hey, Junaid, hey, great to see you guys. And everybody who's out there, we really appreciate you. And we'll have some announcements for next episodes. But Scott, it's been a pleasure, and we'll end the broadcast right now.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, man. Yeah.
Thanks.